Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Bloodhouse, the show where we talk about art house horror movies. I'm Joshua Conkle.
And I'm your co-hostess with the mostest, Drusilla Adeline. And we are joined today by an extra special, ultra spooky guest. The one, the only, podcast extraordinaire from Midnight Mass with Peaches Christ, from Dead for Filth with Michael Varrati. It's Michael Varrati!
Huzzah! Hello. Yay!
Oh, yay. I'm so excited to be here with you both. Wow, this is awesome. I love art house horror. I love you both. And I'm so thrilled to come and play in your Bloodhouse.
It's an honor, an absolute honor. Actually, Drusilla and I met through you because she was the producer on Dead for Filth and I was a guest, and that's how we met way back when.
So this show wouldn't exist without you, so it's stupid that we haven't had you on until this point. So...
Well, I like to believe I show up exactly when needed, like Maleficent at the party, except I was invited.
I feel like you are to queer horror Hollywood as Truman Capote was to the literary scene of his day, in that you are everywhere and know everyone, and so are often the connection between people.
Oh, you know, I have never been compared to Truman Capote before, so I'm going to put this in my memory book. I love that. Maybe, I hope I'm nicer. That's the only thing.
You're certainly hotter. He was like frog-like a little bit.
All right, I'll take it. Thank you.
How are you?
That is dream casting for the remake of Murder by Death, though.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, I would love to be in a remake of Murder by Death, probably slightly updated to deal with some of the racial issues that the film has.
So you're saying you should do more Yellowface in it, rather than the previous version?
Well, to answer Josh's question, I'm well. I'm tired. I'm just coming off the heels of doing the Midsummer Scream weekend. I had a huge slate of things there. Mm-hmm. Peaches Christ and I were there meeting listeners and taking photos and such. I screened my new short film, Infested Hearts. I also was there for the premiere of the WNUF sequel, which I think I'm now allowed to say that I'm also in.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And it's been great. It's been sort of an onslaught. I was at Comic-Con last weekend, also hawking my wares. I've been in production on a project, and just out there spreading the spooky gospel when I can.
Just out there hustling.
Yes.
Doing the Dark Lord's work.
When can we see the WNUF sequel? I didn't know anything about that. I love WNUF.
I believe right now, so Chris LaMartina, who made the original movie as well as the sequel, and his wife, the amazing Melissa LaMartina, who's not only in it but produced it, they just released it, and it's available, I think, through their webpage. They're sending out DVD copies. The new movie is set in the 90s. It's like a mixtape of 90s Halloween clips. It's like a Ricky Lake show that turns into one of these like fact or fiction shows with all like the 90s commercials and things. And the way it's constructed is it's as if it's an old Halloween mixtape. It's actually called the Out There Halloween Mega Tape, aka WNUF2. And in the movie, I'm the voice of the talk show hosts like end cap. So remember when you would watch Ricky Lake or Jenny Jones, it would be like, if you or someone you know is addicted to jelly beans, we want to hear from you. And I do that all throughout those segments. And I think he contacted me to do that 2 years ago. I've been sitting on it because I love the WNUF original. I've known Chris since he was 19 years old. I met him at a convention. I was at the Ultra Violent table at Cinema Wasteland. And he's like, I'm going to make movies. And I'm like, sure, kid. And then he showed me this movie that he made called President's Day, which was a slasher. And I was like, holy shit, this kid's making movies. And like, he did it. And we've been friends ever since. And he made WNUF, which became like an amazing cult classic. And now there's sequels out and I'm honored to be part of it. But he, is distributing the movie himself because the movie is in the spirit of tape trading from the 90s.
Yeah.
So it's not immediately going to any streaming platform as far as I know. And he is the one to speak on this more than me. But I think right now the place to get it is through them. And that's kind of how they're doing it. Like this organic, let's bring it back to basics. And it's kind of cool.
That's really cool. The artist Miranda July had a cool thing in the 90s before she was really famous, where she had a movie mixtape where filmmakers could submit a short film to this project, and then you would receive a VHS tape with a number of short films, and you didn't know which ones you were going to get. It was like a sort of chain letter of short films on VHS. It was really cool.
It's a strange era that I think that now with the advent of the internet where everything's available through websites or, you can order things from all over the world. And if you're looking for something, someone has it and a few keystrokes away you can find it. And I think the era of tape trading especially is lost on the new generation, especially of genre fans, because if your local video store didn't have it, you maybe didn't even know it existed because that was just the breaks. We didn't know where to go. And if you wanted to find deeper cuts or oddities, rarities, foreign films that weren't being stocked, you would reach out to these like tape traders and they would send you these sort of like Xeroxed papers with like a little staple in the corner. And it was just, one or two sentences. That's how I first found out about Shock Treatment. I remember seeing in a tape trader booklet, Shock Treatment, the sequel to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and that's all it said. And I was like, what? And I made my mom, couldn't even drive yet. I made my mom like drive me around to like every fucking video store in the tri-state area until I found a place that had it. Of course, it wasn't really a sequel to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but that like sparked my interest. And there was something lawless about that era of finding movies because you kind of had to take it on good faith that what people described to you was true.
Yeah, I had the same experience with Shock Treatment. I saw some of it on Cinemax after school when I was like 12, and then I had to call video stores in the area and try to find one, and eventually my mom had to drive me 45 minutes away to get it. I also remember I got really into John Waters right before they re-released Pink Flamingos and Female Trouble. So this is like 1995. So all of those 70s movies were actually long out of print, and most people my age didn't know about them. And so I had to rent them from a video store in Philadelphia. And there was a down payment of $150 because they were rare. And then they shipped Pink Flamingos and Female Trouble to my house. And then my mom let me skip school to watch Female Trouble and Pink Flamingos for the first time.
That's Skipping awesome. School and watching Female Trouble especially is so on brand. It's so beautiful.
I was so obsessed.
Meanwhile, in 1995, I was busy crawling my way out of a birth canal.
I know. It's so upsetting. Well, how do you feel you said you love art house horror movies, Michael. What's your taste in horror? I mean, where do you sit with this? There's a lot of people who resent the term, and especially the term elevated horror makes them mad. So we feel like there's like some amount of resentment towards these kind of movies in the horror fandom, but where are you on that?
Well, it's really funny that you ask, because the short film that I referenced that I just screened at Midsummer Scream is a short called Infested Hearts, and they literally programmed it in a block called Art House Horrors. And as Drew can attest, as well as people who know sort of my commercial work versus the work that I make for me, I tend to, when I make things myself, fall into a very surrealist, I don't feel like I need to explain everything kind of territory. I don't mind if it gets weird. I don't really care if it's accessible or not, because that's not, to me, the purpose or point of art. Right. So I've always been attracted in some way to subversive art that challenges you. And I think that the horror movies and the genre films that really, really motivated me to pursue filmmaking were the ones that were maybe a little bit more, if that makes sense, that push the boundary. Now, of course, I have told my origin story in the world of horror many, many times. And the abbreviated version is I saw a double feature of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and Return of the Killer Tomatoes on a show called Up All Night, USA Up All Night.
USA Up, and I always say that show raised me.
Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, I attribute it raised me in the world of cult, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that. But the whole point of Up All Night was like sex comedies and exploitation films and horror movies that were sort of the lowbrow. That's how I found a lot of trauma movies to begin with. And I love all of that stuff. But I think that I can appreciate the full spectrum of genre. I can get that something like The Toxic Avenger can be ooey gooey and stupid, but also secretly have an environmental message, and then turn around and watch something like Daughters of Darkness and be like, okay, we are like mining the depths of the human soul and sexuality.
Yeah.
I think that the term elevated horror is actually something that was invented by marketing people, because I don't think fans really care. I think that
No.
if you really, really like horror, you know the kind of horror you like, and you're either going to gravitate towards it or not. But I've never seen the genre audience be very, very particular about, oh, well, this is elevated horror, and this is the only kind of horror I watch, or vice versa. I think that that's something that people like at Cannes or Sundance or in a distribution room feel like they have to apply to attract the attention of people who are not genre focused. So I don't love it, but you can call my work whatever you want as long as you watch it.
Yeah. It's also like sort of a false binary, right? Because like we've covered Frankenhooker on this show because it's made by an auteur, and Daughters of Darkness has an overlap with the adult film industry. And so things can be kind of both things at once. And that's like pretty delightful intersection.
Well, the reality is that good genre still has some sort of message. And I'll use the Toxic Avenger as an example since I brought it up. But, you know, the underlying message of the Toxic Avenger is about environmentalism. It's about toxic waste dumping and the harm we're doing to the environment all the way in the 80s. It's still an issue today. And of course, it's wrapped up as this like body, boobied, bloody B movie. But the reason it persists as a cult film, much like the Killer Tomatoes movies, they are not really about Killer Tomatoes. They're about many, many other things. Commercialization, corporatization. There is an earnestness in the camp. There's an earnestness in the genre that cuts through the noise to speak to something else. And in that way, whether it's a Frankenhooker or some thoughtful French sapphic vampire, if it's speaking to something in your human heart or inhuman heart, then it's all elevated to some degree.
Yeah, agreed. Well, let's talk about fun things. What have you seen? Anything cool that's new to you?
What have I seen that's new and cool to me? Oh gosh. I just saw the This Is GWAR documentary on Shudder.
Ooh.
And
how is that?
I loved it. I have to say that it actually speaks to everything that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because GWAR is a band that I sort of peripherally knew about, but never really got into. When I was in college in Ohio, I would go to a lot of punk shows. Cleveland was actually pretty notorious for a cool punk scene. And I went to a lot of punk shows. A lot of my friends were in punk bands. And I knew about GWAR because every now and then they would come through because they were from Richmond, Virginia. So it was kind of like adjacent city sort of situation. And friends would be like, oh, we're going to see GWAR tonight. And we got brand new white t-shirts to go. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And later I found out it's because they ooze and spray blood and all sorts of other fluids on the audience, which I think is cool.
That's cool.
But the documentary really was great because here's this group that I sort of knew about, but not really. But they approached it from the idea that, yeah, it's a band, but they're more of an art collective who created this sort of narrative and universe that challenges the norm, that bucks against society, that it's like, is it good? Is it not? Does it matter? It's an experience. And watching it, I was like, wow, this shares a lot of DNA with a lot of the scenes that I'm interested in, you know, the late night kind of filmmakers. And I loved it. I think it's really cool because if you make art outside of the box, you know, you mentioned John Waters. What made John Waters work so special, in addition to just his brilliant mind, is he had this troupe of people who he made the movies with. It was an artist collective, the Warhol Factory, you know, the Trauma team, this, that, and all these other people who come together and make art knowing that the mainstream is not going to let them do it unless they do it together. That felt so relatable to me. And so when this documentary was done, I was like, okay, I'm a GWAR fan, even though I didn't know I was a GWAR fan until this moment.
Yeah.
So
I've had the same experience with them. I've always like sort of peripherally known about them. Weirdly, I remember them walking the gay pride parade in Seattle when I was a teenager for some reason.
That sounds right.
But I've never really liked their music as much as I love punk. I just don't really love their sound, to be honest, but I love the presentation and the style and the sort of pageantry and sort of grand guignol puppet show that they're doing is so cool. I have to check that out. Yeah. How about you, Drusilla? Anything good?
I mean, I popped my Cinespia cherry for the first time last night. I've lived in LA for like 6 years now, and I've never been to Hollywood Forever Cemetery, let alone one of their screenings they do there. and a bunch of friends dragged me out to go see Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
which is the bomb. And I hadn't seen it since I was a child. My uncle showed me Psycho and The Birds on the same night when I was like 8 or something.
Mhm.
It was very formative, and I never wanted to watch The Birds again because of how much it totally terrified me as a kid. And I didn't want to, like, sully that in any way. But then seeing it with some of my closest friends, having a picnic in the middle of one of the biggest, most beautiful cemeteries in Los Angeles was so magical and so special. And to see that movie still affect me and be as terrifying, if not more, over 20 years later, were so beautiful. And also, with time and age and discovering yourself, realizing that, goddamn, that movie's fucking gay. Holy shit, the lesbianism in The Birds is off the rails.
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock and Daphne du Maurier really cannot resist some sapphic attraction. Good God.
No.
Well, I mean, really,
I'm due
who
for a
can?
rewatch of that. Yeah.
I mean, for Veronica Cartwright's performance alone.
Love her. I mean, incredible. I like going to movies at Cinespia, but they're programmed to me. I mean, they're obviously like trying to get as many butts in seats, so to speak, butts on graves as they
Yes.
can. So for that reason, sometimes the programming feels a little bit boring to me. It's always like A League of Their Own or whatever, which is a movie I like, but you know what I mean? Like the rigmarole of getting through that line for me when I'm so anxious about crowds and like waiting in lines always seems a little bit not worth, unfortunately.
Which might be part of the reason why it's taken me until now to
It's
go.
such a thing.
I hate people. I don't like...
I'm the same.
My struggle, and it's just with age, honestly, is I can't sit on the ground for too long. My back starts hurting.
It's hard. It is hard.
And you've got to get there at like 5 to get in at 7 for the movie to start at 9.
Yeah.
So that's like a whole evening of like sitting out in the world in hot Los Angeles on the ground with like wine and cheese.
Yeah. For
Which,
me,
like, great once in a blue moon. I could not see myself doing it again tomorrow. Good God, no.
Yeah.
But I had so much fun.
yeah, it's fun once you're in and the movie's on. I for me to go to that now, it would have to be something really special. It would have to be like Return of the Living Dead or, you know, something that you want to watch specifically in a graveyard. That's the other thing. I feel like it's never like, it's very rarely horror and you want it to be sort of, you know, like,
I'm trying to think the last horror adjacent thing I even saw there. They did a Witches overnight where they played Practical Magic, The Craft, and Witches of Eastwick. And we made it through the end of The Craft. And look, I love Witches of Eastwick, but it's that thing where I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a back spasm if I lay on the ground any longer. But it was worth it to see, it's a graveyard full of people like dancing around to midnight margaritas when that happened.
Yeah.
And Practical Magic. So I was glad I was there for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was a great time. What about you, Josh? Have you been up to anything chaotic and messy lately?
Well, I saw something that Drusilla, you and I talked about a little bit. I can't believe that I haven't seen this movie. I feel like I have seen this my whole life and I haven't. It's Out of the Blue by Dennis Hopper. It just knocked me on my ass. And if we're talking my favorite genres, after horror is like the juvenile delinquent film from the 70s and 80s. So there's so many movies like this that I love, like Over the Edge and Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains and Times Square. And some of those are like my favorite movies. And I've known about this for like 25 years and I've just never seen it. And I finally just bought the new Blu-ray release and I don't have enough words for how much I love this movie. I mean, Dennis Hopper's such a good director and actor, obviously. Linda Manns is absolutely astoundingly good in this. It's just incredible. I just can't say enough good things about it. I think about it all the time now. It's been like a week and a half since I watched it.
After I saw that movie, because I watched it recently to do the Blu-ray release artwork, which Josh texted me this week being like, have you seen this movie Out of the Blue? And I was like, yes, I have.
Drusilla scolded me, in fact. She's like, Josh, I plug my website every episode. And I was like, bitch, I have looked at your website so many times that don't ask me to memorize your resume. I don't even have my resume memorized.
I watch all of Sabrina. You could look at my art. When I finished watching that movie for that artwork, I literally had to call my therapist. Like, that is how affecting Out of the
It's
Blue
so good.
is.
Not to win any great friend prizes, but while I was at Midsummer Scream, I was standing at the Severin table, and someone picked up Out of the Blue, and I said, well, Drusilla Adeline did the artwork for that. So, and that's a true story. You can call them.
Listen, Michael, I'm not trying to compete here. Like, you can be Drusilla's best friend. I love her, but I will not be scolded for not having her resume memorized.
I just know that, like, in 2 weeks, Josh is going to text me and be like, have you ever seen The Elephant Man? And I'm going to be like, yes, Josh.
I would never
I have.
ask you that. I would know that you've seen The Elephant Man. And also, yeah, that's going to happen again. Because again, why should I know every Blu-ray that you've done the art for? And yeah, you watched all of Sabrina, but that's not my resume. That is a day job. It's like if you had, if I worked at McDonald's and you're like, I've tried everything on the menu. It's like, well, great. What does that have to do with me?
Well, that's also my day job. Anyway.
Anyway, enough arguing. Shall we get into the movie of the day?
Yeah, I believe so. As is the custom, Michael has brought a film with him. So I think he should be the one to give it a nice little nudge and introduction to our lovely, lovely audience.
Oh, okay. Well, the film that I brought today is from filmmaker Takashi Miike, who I know you both have covered already because you talked about the savage audition. And this movie is definitely horror of a different stripe. It's called Happiness of the Katakuris, and it's about a family who run a bed and breakfast in the mountains of Japan that is not getting a lot of traffic. And when they finally get a guest, that person unceremoniously dies. And out of concern that will kill their business entirely, they choose to hide the body. And then it keeps happening. That seems like a fairly straightforward narrative, but this movie also has claymation and musical numbers and a man who claims to be the nephew of Queen Elizabeth, as well as many, many other strange surrealistic happenings that befit the work of Takashi Miike, one of cinema's strangest filmmakers and outlaws. I have loved this movie since I saw it in the early thousands, and when I was asked to bring an art house film, I toiled and postulated what I wanted to bring, but this was the very first title I thought of, and it was the one I kept coming back to, and I knew that we had to talk about Happiness of the Katakuris.
Yay! I really loved this. You saw this in the 2000s. I mean, was this always available? Because I feel like it's only come into it's only come to my attention very recently.
Yeah, so when I was in college, I went to college at Kent State University in Ohio. I was part of a organization called the IFS, which was the International Film Society, and it was our job to program a movie a week on campus. And through that organization, I actually discovered a lot of international filmmakers that even at the time were very difficult to find at your local video stores. And we really took it seriously. We enjoyed looking through the catalogs as they would arrive. And that was how I first saw the work of Gaspar Noé. I think that I knew who Almodovar was, but I really got into him because of that, because we would get the screeners and we would choose what was played on campus. And I had a friend in the group who was really, really into Ichi the Killer. And when we had seen that there was this other Miike movie called Happiness of the Katakuris, and in the actual distribution catalog, it was very vague. It said something like Takashi Miike's zombie horror musical, like Dawn of the Dead meets Sound of Music, which really doesn't say anything about what this movie actually is. But I'm like, hey, I want to see that. So we programmed it to screen. And I fell in love from that point on. And at the time, I was able to track down the distributor of the DVD, and I bought it and ordered it to be delivered. But yeah, it was not easily found, especially, if you were reliant on, say, Blockbuster, which was never very good at having foreign films to begin with, let alone art house foreign films. But I think thanks to places like Arrow Video and some of the streaming platforms, a lot of Miike's catalog is getting a second look.
Just now. Tangential. Don't you find it weird as a person that's our age that people are nostalgic for Blockbuster, of all things?
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, I would go, like, if I was out and about and it was available. Like, the problem with a college town is we had a Hollywood Video and a Blockbuster, and that was it. Which made it really difficult for us to find some of the deeper cuts. But it was weird because Blockbuster had very, very limited copies of things. They were very studio focused. And what a lot of people don't recall is certain Blockbusters would have edited versions of movies.
Yes, they would edit things. They would take it on their own accord to edit things. Anyway, that's like neither here nor there, but I just find it so odd because there were really cool mom and pop video stores everywhere, and Blockbuster kind of destroyed them and was pretty evil. And not to make people feel bad, but I just find it odd. That's all. What about you, Drusilla? When did you see this? You knew this movie already.
Yeah, I saw this movie in college, so that would have been around 2014. So this is before Era Video kind of started doing their Miike Renaissance, which bless them, specifically Fran for doing that, the champions. Yeah. And there were like clips from the opening stop motion sequences of this movie that were constantly floating around the internet because they are batshit and wild and beautiful. And they'd pop around along with like Jan Svankmajer stop motion animated stuff from like, you know, his Alice in Wonderland adaptation or his insane soccer short. And you know, it'd be the kind of thing of like, oh well, let's watch a compilation of these little clips of weird shit on YouTube in between like parties and college classes. Isn't that weird? And then a couple of friends and I were like, no, we actually want to watch these movies. Like, we're not fed alone on clips. What the fuck are these movies? And so we found the title, and a friend found a digital file of the movie through Means. Is how I'm going to describe it.
Don't narc.
And yeah, and he had a bunch of said files on his computer, and I believe we literally like huddled around a laptop at like 2 a.m. Probably on like a twin mattress and watched this movie just with our jaws constantly on the floor, because it's just constantly changing and evolving, and so it always just kind of sat in the back of my brain as like, that's a thing that happened. That's a movie I watched. It feels like the only way that you could watch that movie is illegally streamed and, you know, download or something like that. And so for years to go by, and now like there's a shiny new Blu-ray release and it is available for streaming at the drop of a hat over on like multiple streaming platforms is so like cozy to me. Yeah. It's so happy. It's like, I don't know, it's like an infectious disease you want to spread.
What
about you, Josh? This is your first time, right?
Yeah, totally first time. I only became aware of this movie when Arrow re-released it, and I hadn't seen it. The only Takashi Miike movies I've seen are like Audition and Ichi the Killer and the more popular films in the US. So I was really primed to watch something that was much more violent and upsetting than this. And so not that I mind violence, but it was nice that it was like a fun, kind of, I would say, joyous movie. It made me smile. It made me laugh. It still had enough horror elements to like poke, you know, to itch that scratch. But yeah, I thought it was joyous. I loved the opening. I mean, let's start at the beginning. I mean, it opens with a woman in a restaurant eating soup, and then there's her like spoon is getting stuck on something under the soup. So she switches to a fork and she pulls out a claymation sort of demonic cherub, which immediately rips the uvula out of her mouth as she turns into claymation herself and flies off with it as a delicious snack. I mean, what an opener. What a cold open. It doesn't really come back in the movie. But then the cherub is eaten by a bird, and then the bird is eaten by a teddy bear, and it's sort of going through like a demonic cycle of life sort of thing. The claymation is incredible. It is like something that would appear at a college party on a screen underneath like an Outcast CD.
Yeah.
No, I love this opening because you're right. It doesn't really come back again, but we see this strange cycle of life where the little creature is eaten by a bird, and then the bird eventually flies over the bed and breakfast where we meet the family and come back into the world of the living as opposed to claymation. And it's this strange sort of kind of Miike setting us up to say everything's constantly in motion. And you know, it's going to be good, it's going to be bad, it's going to be whatever. Because you see the creature have a victorious moment, you see the creature fail. I read somewhere that some people think it's a yokai, which is a Japanese demon of sorts, and that makes sense to me. But I also don't know that Miike is ever like fully on the nose about anything. So who's to say? But I think it's a delightful way to meet this family, because you already go through this tumultuous, turbulent circumstance in less than a few minutes. And then you get introduced to them and you're like, oh, they're a tumultuous, turbulent group of people, whether they choose to be or not.
Yeah. And to be clear, when I say that it doesn't come back again, I'm not criticizing the movie. I think it's a delight, and
right.
It is what it is. It introduces us to the family because the grandfather's trying to knock it out of the sky. And, this family has bought a bed and breakfast in the countryside because they've been told that a new road is going to come through and bring lots of tourists, but that hasn't manifested yet. And so they're struggling. They don't have any guests. And, I guess it's important that the inn is built beneath Mount Fuji, the volcano in Japan, and it's weirdly called the White Lovers Inn, which is interesting. And yeah, we have 4 generations of this family.
You know what's interesting to note about this film is that it's supposed to be allegedly a loose remake of a Korean movie called The Quiet Family,
right?
Which
Kim Ji-woon's,
which is predicated on a similar premise where it's a family who owns a bed and breakfast, but people keep dying. But I kind of view this as a remake of that in the way that Clueless is a remake of Emma. It takes the theme, but takes it in a completely very bizarre, strange place. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me how, and this is going to be the super art house side of the show, kind of how My Own Private Idaho is a remake of Chimes at Midnight, where like midway through My Own Private Idaho, they're like, we're going to stop, everyone's going to have Shakespearean dialogue, we're all going to go into this, and then we're going to get bored of it and get back to the other stuff. Because they kind of abandon the Kim Ji-woon plot after a while and kind of start doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Because the Kim Ji-woon film also has, like, hitmen and, like ancestral, like, money kind of Agatha Christie stuff. And Miike could not give 2 fucks. He's too busy setting up his karaoke numbers and his zombie scenes.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about Miike, because I think that he sort of has a reputation as a contrarian, but I think this movie, of all of the movies that we've mentioned in passing, whether it's Audition or Ichi the Killer, this one in a lot of ways tackles Japanese politics more than a lot of his films, because there was a moment in Japanese history that they refer to as the Lost Decade, which speaks to a whole era of economic collapse where there was a lot of desperation. And this movie is very firmly set during that time, as based on how the narrative is set up. Like, this family spent their last dollar with the hope that this bed and breakfast will bring them back from the edge of like financial ruin. And so he's recognizing like this is the desperation. People were doing crazy things with the hopes that they would not be completely lost, but in a way the family's lost in a multitude of existential ways. And that's where we get the movie. And I think that like when I think of something like Audition, which of course has its own kind of socio-political and intrapersonal messaging, this is him being more broad. Like, hey, remember when our country was in trouble and people did nuts things? Well, here's how nuts it can get.
Yeah. Speaking of the karaoke musical numbers, the first person to die at the end is a traveling businessman who takes his own life after singing a sad dirge. And the family discovers his body, and we are thrust into the first big musical number. It's insane. The lighting is crazy. The choreography is really stylized. It kind of reminds me of, remember when the Mighty Mighty Power Rangers would, Mighty Mighty Morphin Power Rangers would like explode into action? It kind of feels like that. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's kind of like waiting to do their move and have their line reading. As soon as their line comes up, they get to move all over the space and then they have to stop again. It's beautiful, and the music is bopping and very, very up tempo. But it's a corpse discovery musical number, which I love.
It's great.
Oh, this This was the scene that sold me on the movie when I first saw it. Like, I mean, obviously that claymation is amazing, and I get that that's what would bring a lot of people in. But like when the door like blows open and there's like, you know, the fog machine and everyone's just dramatically posing, and you get that like guitar hit, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now, but I'm all about it. So.
Yeah, and I feel like this does and you could disagree with this, but in my sense of this was that the musical numbers are happening in the minds of the characters, as opposed to some musicals where it's actually happening in real time. It feels like it's normal before and after the musical numbers. You get the sense that it's just stylizing the emotion of the moment, which is like an old school musical thing.
I mean, yeah, but that's kind of literalized a little bit later when there's a like discussion between the family in front of a group of police officers. That's very obvious that the police officers are not privy to this conversation that they are singing and dancing about. Because if they were, things would change pretty quickly.
Can we talk about my favorite subplot, Richard Sagawa? What is his name? Richard? What is his name? I wrote it down.
I just remember it being
Richard Sagawa, something Japanese. Richard. So the adult daughter goes to a restaurant. She falls in love too easily. That's her core wound, let's call it. And she has a little girl who's narrating the movie, actually. And so they go to an outdoor restaurant. When she meets Richard, who claims to be a Japanese American, he says he's in the U.S. Navy, and then he goes, well, to be more specific, the British Royal Navy, which is an entirely different thing, of course. So we know that he's like some sort of liar or scammer. He also will speak English in front of her, but his English is truly terrible. Like, there's no way that he's American. That actor also is a Japanese rock star, it turns out, of some sort. That performance to me was so good. The writing is so funny and wild. I just loved that entire through line.
He has my favorite line of the entire movie, which is later in the film, he takes her on a loving serenade through basically a landfill, and sings her this like love ballad. And midway through, as they're getting very romantic, he gets a nosebleed and then stops singing and then immediately says, no, I don't have nosebleeds because I'm horny.
He also claims that Queen Elizabeth is his aunt, and that, you know, he would say, like, Princess Di talks about her death, and he's like, if only I could have been there, I would have stopped it. And it is like, she often called me for advice. Just like these wild lies that are so funny. I loved his entire character. He has a ponytail. Like, no one in the Navy has a ponytail. That storyline rules.
There's a great bit when he calls up on the daughter in between meeting her for the first time and then finally arriving at the inn, where he's pretending to be on like a destroyer or something in the middle of a mission. So you just hear it from her end initially of a lot of gunfire, a lot of screaming, and he's very hurriedly trying to let her know that I do love you. I promise I love you. And then on his end, he's just in a shitty hotel room with like tape
orders. It reminded me of two things. It reminded me of Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street when he calls home and is trying to convince his parents that he's staying with his cousin by the airport by playing tapes, and the tape is going from like airport sounds to screaming and car accidents, and he's trying to cover it up.
Yes!
It reminded me of that. And then the other thing that it reminded me of is Takashi Miike's audition, when there's the scene where the man is calling the woman and you see her creepy serial killer apartment for the first time, and she's just sitting by the phone with her hair hanging down and that weird sack in the background. So we know right away that Richard is a scammer, and this shot nails that down for sure.
But I love that the movie really wants us to like him.
And we do.
Know, like we do, yeah. Because I think there's that thing where if his lies were simple, we would be on her side. And we're technically on her side anyway, because we know that he's lying to her. But if his lies were simple and deceptive, it would just feel mean. But there's a part of you that's like, okay, he's claiming all of these huge things, none of which could actually be true. And she's so like caught up in the fairy tale of it all that we're all just like along for the ride because it's absurdist. The whole thing's absurdist. And the fact that she believes that he is the Japanese American British military nephew of Queen Elizabeth, also here's this amazing musical number with sing-along lyrics, you're just like, okay, girl, get it together.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Also, their meet cute as soon as she like locks eyes with him for the first time and sees this like man in an officer and a gentleman style wardrobe across the crowd, she immediately launches into a whole musical number about how they're going to be in love forever, and they sing through the heavens. And he dies in the musical number, and she revives him or brings him back to life. And then when we finally get back down to Earth, we see from her daughter's perspective that she is just passed out and gyrating on the ground in front of him.
Well, she falls in love too easily. And what did you call that, Josh?
Her core wound.
Her core wound. Yeah, I love
her
that.
Tragic flaw.
Her tragic flaw. What I love about identifying it as such is at the beginning of the movie, when we get that narrative about how families are a unit, but not really, because everyone has their own hopes and dreams and their own problems. This movie really, really showcases that all of these people have individual stories and individual lives that lead to this sort of collective trauma that the family has. But as families do, the reason it all seems strange and surrealist and weird, and they're completely not fully ever able to unpack it, is that's how people are. Like, my problems aren't my mom's problems or not my dad's problems, and like maybe all of those problems collectively lead to something, but like unless we all fucking figure it out together, it's never, that's just how it goes. It's that generational like contribution to, I don't know, more crazy.
Yeah.
And despite the like murder and occasional bouts of Roger and Hammerstein by way of Xanadu musical numbers and corpses and zombies and, murders and police and things like that in this movie, it's incredibly touching and incredibly, like, celebratory of both life and of family. There's a great sequence in the movie after we've had a dirge of everyone who checks into this freaking inn is going to die in some kind of way. In the middle of a rainstorm, a family arrives to check in, and it is a father, a mother, a like teenage daughter playing the recorder, and a young boy who's constantly coughing. And as soon as they're like constantly in a group, they're never not moving in a group like the villains from Codename Kid Next Door, because that's the reference I'm going to drop apparently. And as soon as they come in, the family's like, oh fuck. We're gonna have to bury 4 bodies. This is not gonna end well. The recorder or the kid coughing, and then immediately once they start checking in, the mother of this little family asks for a long, strong cord, and they're all like,
"Oh no,
for choking, a cord?" And she's like, "Yes, a cord. We would like a cord." And then the next day, they're like, "Well, we're leaving now. I hope you had a good time. Goodbye. Thank you for hosting us." And they just, again, in a group, leave, and the family's like, they're horrifying. What's wrong with them?
And then later
they're not individual.
Then later we catch up with them in the woods, and we see that the cord was to create a belt for the little boy. Yeah, it's like a fun little runner. How about the sumo wrestler? So one of the guests that checks in is a famous sumo wrestler that they all recognize. And he goes upstairs to his room to have relations with a much younger woman, and then dies on top of her and crushes her to death. So they both die. And then they have to figure out how to get his enormous body out of the room. How did we feel about that scene? The sex was a little weird at first.
As soon as they show up at the end, because I haven't watched this movie since I was in college, and I was kind of like, oh, I forgot about this bit. Oh, this girl is... very clearly underage. And as soon as they check in, his like only line of the entire movie is, "They'll never find us here." And then they run upstairs to have sex, and then of course immediately dies on top of her. And it's just so uncomfortable. But as soon as that was set up, you're like, well, he's gonna die.
Yeah.
Well, and then of course the family, when they discover the body the next morning and all they find is his body, and then subsequently when they move his body, find her like cartoonishly crushed underneath. It's, I mean, offensive, sure, but I think we sort of know what we're getting with this movie at this point, too.
Yeah, there is an element to it that's a little bit Adult Swim-ish, or, which I like. I think that's fun, but it is there.
Speaking of Adult Swim-ish, early 2000s humor that I forgot about being in this movie... there is a, like, partially running bit through this movie when they're watching television about a famous actress who is older now and she's not as attractive, and they keep returning to the mom of the family and being like, isn't she your age? Jesus, she looks terrible. And it's a man in a dress.
Yeah.
And I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
No, and I think justly so. That's the thing that I always forget. You know, it's that thing when you revisit the movies. I forget about it because it's sort of not really crucial to anything that happens, but they keep coming back to it. And I don't really know why, other than it's sort of like, who are we shaming here? You know, because it's not just shaming the person on the television, it's shaming the mother, because there's ageism involved as well.
Yeah.
And I'm also wondering if there is something lost in translation that we're missing about it too. I'm sure it's still problematic to some degree because there is a finger being pointed, or it could be. It may, you know, you're right. Yeah. I mean, that's that embracing of our problematic faves. This has definitely got elements of things where I'm just like, okay.
I mean, it was a time that was incredibly transphobic, and even progressive people who weren't in their everyday lives transphobic would just casually use the T slur to describe somebody who was wearing a fucked up. You know, I started watching Project Runway again, the last season, and Christian Siriano is now in the Tim Gunn role of being the mentor, and it made me remember his season when he won in 2007, and his big thing was saying a hot T slur mess about things like, oh, she's a hot T slur, you know what I mean? Like, and that was pretty normal. That was on Bravo TV, unbleeped out. And it was so common to that era. So I think
it was also like the same time that like The Simpsons had their big like progressive like coming out episode that like they're gonna let Patty Bouvier be a lesbian and she's going to get married, and it's going to be the most progressive episode of The Simpsons, and they're going to bring gay marriage to Springfield, and that's the like clincher of that episode is, but the person she's going to marry is trans, who faked their gender to be better at sports, and then tricked a lesbian into marrying them, and the entire episode ends on them being like, no, Patty, we accept you. We just don't want you to be tricked by this man in a dress.
I didn't even know this happened.
Yep, it was like 2002. It was one of the first Simpsons episodes I remember watching. And I remember at the time being like, oh, look, they did gays. That's cute.
I mean, I legit don't think, I mean, props to people who have stuck with it, but I don't think I've seen The Simpsons since the late 90s. So I had no idea that
I'm
this
with you.
For the best. The Simpsons got really transphobic around 99, and then just stayed that way. Until
as soon as I saw that element of this film, I was a little bit like, but like Michael said, it's not a huge part of the film. It's easy to forget about for me.
And then it comes differently. And then it comes back, and you're like,
yeah, here it is again.
Right.
There is like a whole Adult Swimmy kind of quality. Like, this is set in rural Japan beneath Mount Fuji, so it's all forested. In another version of this movie, it would be like really lush, green, magical forest. Here, the forest is full of garbage and like, you know, like sinkholes and stuff like that, and just strewn about car parts and stuff. So this movie is like doing an aesthetic.
The one thing I will say about that element, when I was looking at the film in preparation for this, and I 100% agree with Drusilla, it is one of the elements that sort of doesn't sit well with me upon rewatch. But the thing that I do think is interesting in larger context is it's the family that's making a deal out of it. Like, the idea that there's a gender nonconforming, fabulous person performing regularly on television in Japan, I'm like, okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah,
it's this family that needs to get their fucking politics together.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It is really a heartwarming, life-affirming movie, though. It's sort of like a family values movie in a fucked up Takashi Miike way. I was really surprised at how sweet and fun and, just kind.
The final half hour of this movie is all like, we set up the family. They all have their own little peccadillos. They've all got their own little problems, and only through hiding bodies and murdering con men can they finally discover their love for each other. And in the end, there is a whole sequence where like the three primary male characters of the family all are competing to kind of sacrifice themselves for the betterment of the family in one way or another. And it is all at once incredibly heartwarming and hysterical at the same time.
Well, what's really great about the finale too is all of the core wounds, the character flaws. They actually come back in a way that helps save them. You know, the daughter's penchant for loving too much allows aids them in the end. The sort of mistrust that they have for the son's criminal past and reconciling that aids them in the end. And so it's the family working through all of their issues with each other that then get us to this still bananas ending. I think is great because you do really end with them as a united front. Yeah. The whole notion that they have their individual problems and they have their individual identities. The movie says, yes, but they're still better together, you know?
How hot is the adult brother, by the way?
I was gonna say.
Yes. So hot.
Oh my God. What took us so long?
I've been dying. I've been sitting on that. I mean, he's so hot. He's a really good dancer. I mean, he's the best dancer in the lot. And he made me remember how much grommet belts and leather wrist cuffs had a hold on men's fashion in the early 2000s.
Well, I was gonna say, like, it's so perfect that you brought up Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street because he's wearing those kind of like cut off sport shirts, and I'm like,
yeah,
you
he's super hot.
Well, when I said that first musical number was when I was sold on the movie, that didn't hurt because like his dramatic posing with he's got like his like kind of punk rock spike hair and he's wearing that green shirt and like the studded belt. He's like bopping around.
He's really hot.
He's also the funniest and most overdramatic member of the family. There's a bit at the end where he may be mortally wounded.
Oh, yeah.
That is so outrageously funny. And it's got the best visual gag I've ever seen in a movie in a long time. And it was the biggest laugh for me. And it was also like outrageously sweet. And relatable. Because I'm that kind of dramatic bitch who'd be like, it's okay. I'm giving you my final thoughts.
What movie would you pair with this for a double feature?
What movie would I pair with this for a double feature? I actually need a second to think about it. Do either?
That's all right. I have some answers.
Okay, go for it.
My first thought was Hausu, but that's too on the nose, I think. And I think that double feature would be overwhelming, for obvious reasons. So I was trying to think of like other baddie musicals, and I thought, what about Voyage of the Rock Aliens?
Ooh, okay.
I haven't seen that.
It's good. I mean, it's not good. It's very bad, but it's sort of delightful in that Xanadu kind of way. And it has like a similar chaotic energy to this movie, and that like it has many different subplots that don't necessarily come together. This is objectively a much better movie, but they have like a shared energy. I think that would pair nicely.
When I rewatched this for the podcast, I was like, oh, I should put on The Quiet Family right after. That would be so perfect. And then I got like a little bit into The Quiet Family and I'm like, this is just so repetitive to do these movies back to back. Yeah. And if you do, you should do The Quiet Family first. Yeah. Since Katakuris is so much more fun. And so I think what would be a lovely double feature with this movie would be another movie about family, about bringing together very disparate members of a family towards a common goal in a way that they can like love and accept each other together, that, you know, is also a movie that has like insane animation meshed with live action and beautiful musical numbers. So I think The Happiness of the Katakuri would play really, really great with Paddington 2.
Oh, I love that idea. I love that.
Well, I mean, how do you follow Paddington, right? You know, thinking about it, there is a Korean movie called Zombie for Sale. Have either of you seen this?
No.
Also, I believe released by Arrow here stateside.
Yes, they did. My friend did the art.
And very, very beautiful movie. Probably prime Bloodhouse content for the future. But it's truly, it's set in this kind of beautiful mountain location. This family finds a zombie and they discover that the zombie's bite has, sort of rejuvenating benefits as opposed to the usual horror movie, outcome. So they keep the zombie, and they as a family are sort of doling out its bites to help the visitors, but they have to keep the secret. And it's a family keeping a terrible secret in a mountain with potential undead repercussions that I think that these two films would go well together.
Well, that's one game out of the way. Let's play our second game, Have They Seen It?, where we speculate wildly about whether notable figures have seen the movie. Does anyone want to go first? I've got a couple of people loaded.
I've got one, and it's so obvious that I feel like I want to say it first so no one steals it from me.
Okay.
As Michael mentioned, when this movie was initially released in the States, the big kind of like, I don't even think it was like a critic quote. I think it was just something that was slapped on by the distributor of, it's Dawn of the Dead meets Sound of Music. So, I don't know. She's a super cool person. So, do you think Julie Andrews has seen The Happiness of the Katakuris?
I thought you were going to go to Edgar Wright.
No, it's obvious he's seen this movie. He's ripping it off all the time.
It's funny because I thought about Julie Andrews when Josh mentioned that we were going to be doing this. I hope so. I love the idea of Julie Andrews watching this movie. And, Julie Andrews in the pop consciousness is so prim and proper, and Mary Poppins and Sound of Music. But she has a wicked sense of humor, and she was married to Blake Edwards, and I think that she would get this. I think she would think it was fun. And, she probably yearns for claymation in her mountainous musical.
Honestly, I would like Sound of Music a whole lot more if it had claymation. And that's why I prefer Happiness of the Katakuris to Sound of Music.
I didn't see The Sound of Music until literally I was like 34 years old for some reason. My family just never watched it growing up. And I was like, there are Nazis in this? I truly had no idea. Yeah. I had no idea what that movie was about.
Yeah, you are 16 going on 17 stuck by a Nazi.
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, it is, Rolf.
Also, when I bleached my hair this year, I said to my hairstylist, I want to look like a Nazi from Sound of Music. And he was like, please don't say that to anyone else. And now I'm mad on the podcast. Not because I am a Nazi, but because it's just like, that's what bleached hair makes me think of on a tan person. I've got somebody. I was trying to think of somebody who was popular in the early 2000s. This is somebody I haven't thought of for some reason in like 15 or 20 years, and they just popped into my head. I want to know, has MySpace celebrity Tila Tequila seen The Happiness of the Katakuris?
Well, I will tell you that deep trivia of this movie, Kat Von D listed this film as one of her favorite films. So I have to say, if Kat Von D has seen it, there is a high chance that Tila Tequila has seen Happiness of the Katakuris.
Do you remember?
Oh, definitely.
Do you remember when Tequila showed back up and had taken like a rightward turn and was like going to weird alt-right meetups and stuff? That was so weird. I wonder what she's doing now.
I kind of I don't know if I want to know.
I'm good.
Because I get
yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I do occasionally get depressed when I find these things out. Gosh, I mean, one of the examples you used in the email is also kind of a great question because of the content of the movie. I would love to know if Queen Elizabeth II has seen this movie since she has an alleged relative in it.
My gut...
But I think
no. I think that she would die if she saw this. I feel like it would kill her. Like it would give her a stroke or something.
However, we know that she's seen the Paddington films.
True.
So maybe if someone snuck it in, like I'm saying, Paddington Katakuris double bill. That's the way to get Queen Elizabeth.
Well, maybe, but
it.
I don't think a surprise watch of this would help her at all.
That's the way to do it. That's the way. Run them together so she thinks they're the same movie.
I'm trying to think if I have a legitimate answer, though, because you did use her as an example in the email when you said we were going to play this game.
That's okay.
Who's someone that I hope has seen... Has Danielle Steele seen Happiness of the Katakuris?
Danielle Steele?
The romance novels? Author? Yes, because this movie is really, at the end of the day, about the affirmation of the human spirit. And who believes in bringing people together for affirmation more than Danielle Steele? If she still writes her own books. I don't know. For some reason, my gut is saying yes, and I don't know why. If
it doesn't seem like there would be a world where she had, but I'm having like a psychic response that says yes, she's seen it.
I hope so. I mean, I always loved her. When she would do these, so I didn't mean to dig on her. I used to love when they would make those like Danielle Steele made for TV movie adaptations of her books, where she would like introduce them. This is so like late 90s, where there would be like this like kind of crap set that, was just like left standing from some other television show. And it would be like French doors with like faux autumn leaves blowing on the veranda. And she would open them and she'd be like, "Good evening, I'm Danielle Steele. And tonight, a tale of romance, winds of war." And I was just like, yes. So I feel like she would get the epicness of this, hopefully.
I think so too. And the like melodrama of it. Yeah.
Now I want her to give a TV introduction to this movie.
She should have a podcast.
She should.
Just saying.
Yeah, but you need the sound of flowing winds and curtains in the background of the podcast the entire time.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Danielle Steele, and you're listening to The Real Steele.
For some reason, I occasionally still think about that time that Fabio got hit in the face by a bird on a roller coaster and burst out laughing. It happens like every 4 years I think of it, and it just makes me smile.
I did I directed a photo shoot recently where we were doing a romance novel cover, and our male model there kept being like, "I'm going to be the next Fabio, I'm going to be the next Fabio." And every single time he said that, a different person who had not heard it yet previously went up to him and was like, "You don't want to kill birds." And he was like, "Why do people keep saying this?" And so I showed him the photo and he was like, "Oh God, oh no."
Well, if I can introduce you both to a true art house horror, did you know that Fabio recorded an album in the late 90s?
What? What kind of music is it?
So it's legit. It's like spoken word, but with like new age, like very pure moods where they're like women singing behind him and like jazz saxophones. And it's like Fabio musing on things. He'll be like, "Passion at midnight in Paris." And it's like a lady in the background is like, "Whoa." And it's a full album. It is it's elevated horror. It is elevated horror.
Wait, Fabio, the star of Exorcist 3?
Fabio, the star of Acapulco Heat, now in syndication.
Oh my God.
I have another one. So I was thinking of somebody. This is a person who like appropriated a lot of Japanese culture in the 2000s, and I like this person. But Gwen Stefani, do you think Gwen Stefani has seen this?
I'm gonna say yes. I kind of feel like because she this shit is bananas. So. Yeah, for sure, Gwen Stefani has seen this movie.
If she hasn't, then like the director of that music video for sure saw this movie, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I mean, I've mentioned him a few times because he is a stop motion god and genius, but like, do you think Jan Svankmajer has seen The Happiness of the Katakuris?
I hope so. If not him, then Phil Tippett at least.
Oh, Phil Tippett's definitely seen it.
Do you know why? Do you know what I have in my possession? And I don't know. This was given to me as a gift, but it's Phil Tippett's personal copy of the Don't Look Now script.
What?
It's like signed by Phil Tippett. I don't even know why he has had one, but I now have it in my possession.
Oh, how interesting.
Josh.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Have you watched Mad God yet?
I did. I watched it 2 weeks ago or so. It was great.
Yeah. Speaking of
really
unsettling.
Fun. Yeah, that was a really cool movie.
And starring my favorite boy, who I'm glad is still doing things, Alex Cox.
Yeah.
God bless. Well, I think that's it for this episode of Bloodhouse. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Michael Varrati, just my name, Midnight Mass at Midnight Mass Pod. We also release episodes when we are in season every Wednesday at midnight. And, otherwise I'm out there. I'll be shouting when I've got something new.
Drusilla, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Hyde Sister, and my art, Josh, I believe you should check out on sisterhydedesign.com.
Fuck you.
I'm also on Letterboxd, apparently. What about you, Josh?
I'm at Joshua Conkle on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. You can follow the show, Bloodhouse Pod, on all the socials. You can email us at bloodhousepod@gmail.com. Drusilla, what are we watching next week?
Well, since we just talked about, like, early 2000s edgelord stuff and Kat Von D, what if we watched a movie that featured Rammstein and Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson and Henry Rollins So I think we should do David Lynch's Lost Highway.
Abso-fucking-lutely.